Good morning and welcome to Life Connect, and our last in our series, number 5 in our series, looking at those 24 hours in the life of Jesus. Some days I crawl into bed exhausted. I'm sure you do at times as well. Maybe it's my age, I don't know. But some days I look back with a smile as my head hits the pillow. Other times perhaps with a frown. Other times I wonder, what have I really accomplished this day? And some days are days when I look back at the sin and failure in my life. Some nights we can go to sleep excited, sometimes broken, sometimes devastated. But can I just say this at this moment? Our Father's full giving has only begun. We'll come back to that in a few moments. We've reached the time between 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, and Mark tells us it was just before dawn. I'm told it's the worst time if you're on night watch as a soldier. It's the time where most attacks happen. When you're on watch as a guard, you're at your coldest and sleepiest. The disciples have been at the oars for around 10 hours now, and they've only got 3 or 4 miles. Can you imagine that? They're tired, cold, worried, frightened, perhaps feeling angry and hurt. They've been on a mountaintop experience, literally, as they watched Jesus feed on the side of a mountain 5,000 plus folk with 5 loaves and 2 fish, until their bellies were full and their excitement tangible. And Jesus has used them in the miracle, which has been wonderful. We saw that yesterday as they continued to take out those baskets of food. And at the end of that day, they filled the baskets again, and there's 12 baskets of leftovers, one for each of them. Then they were in the boat with them, perhaps there and then. And they'd gone from that moment to this, now dejected, discouraged and despairing. It'd been a day that they dreamed of, really, when the crowd suddenly started excitedly of making Jesus king. But Jesus dismisses this potential coronation crowd and sends his disciples into the boat as he retreats to the mountain to pray. For them, the mountaintop has come now not just down to a valley, but right down into the pit and the troughs of this lake. Maybe some of them have been seasick. Now, perhaps drifting in and out of sleep, aching from their work, one of them suddenly calls, "Look, what's that?" And it's a figure walking towards them across the waves, appearing and disappearing as the waves move. It's a ghost. Real fear there. But Jesus says, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Max Lucado, in his beautiful book, In the Eye of the Storm, comments in this way: "Nothing has changed. The storm still rages, the boat still pitches, the wind still shrieks, the thunder still booms, and the rain still slaps. But in the midst of the tumult, they can hear, and we can hear his voice. It is me. It is I. Don't be afraid. I am. I have been here before. I will be here in the future. And I am here now." And perhaps in their minds too, but certainly in our minds, we can look back to the moment when God appeared to Moses in a burning bush and said, "I am, ego eimi." The same words as we have here. That words we'll hear again and again from Jesus in John's Gospel. For Abram was, "I am. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life." And they roll down the centuries to us today. Whatever you face in a day, as you turn your head over in bed, remember, I am. I've been here before. I will be here in the future, and I'm here right now. Imagine the stunned silence among them as the wind continues to crash the waves over the boat. Jesus is standing over there, 20 meters perhaps away, standing on the water. And you've got to love him, haven't you? Peter speaks, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus' simple words, "Come." Can you imagine as Peter first puts his foot over the side and allows his feet to touch the water? And then there's no hesitation, and to the utter amazement of his friends and the shock in his face too, he takes that first step out on the water. I can imagine Jesus smiling, can't you? And he starts to come towards Jesus. And Matthew records, and it's only Matthew that records this incident, he records this: when Peter, when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. When he saw the wind, when he saw the effect of the wind on the waves, the splash on the spray and the tug on his coat, we can perhaps say, I think rightly, he took his eyes off Jesus, and that's a fair interpretation, and there's an awful lot of truth in that. But whatever it was, he was afraid and he began to sink. Lord, he says, save me. And he begins to sink. Did the law of gravity start to reenact itself slowly, or did it suddenly start to plummet? We don't know. But immediately Jesus reaches out his hand and caught him. No hesitation, no waiting. Jesus is there. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? And he lifts him back. And we can only conclude onto the surface of the water. Now let's not be too hard on Peter. He was the only one willing to make that first step. And as someone has said, if you want to walk on water, you have to get out of the boat. Let's not be too hard on Peter. We have to learn that lesson again and again. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? How often have we heard the whisper of those words from Jesus to us today? You have little faith. Why did you doubt? When we've forgotten all he's done. I love the end of the day. It ends in worship. And they worshipped him, saying, you're the Son of God. Truly, you're the Son of God. And then it's dawn and the shadows creep away and it's back into a new day. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning again. 24 hours have gone. New crowds, new needs, more bodies to heal, hearts to mend, and mouths to feed, and people to care for. Reminds me of an old song. Strength for today is mine, okay, and all I need for tomorrow. The Lord knows the way through the wilderness, and all I have to do is follow. Says the Father to his servant Paul, perhaps a decade later after this incident, my grace is sufficient, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. I'm going to end with an old hymn, a hymn written by Annie J. Flint. Born Annie Johnson, orphaned at a very young age. She was brought up by a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Flint, and that's why they call her Annie J. Flint. It's a lovely book called The Marking of the Beautiful by Roland Bingham. She lived decades of her life in a wheelchair and with a body increasingly twisted by rheumatoid arthritis. She suffered with cancer and lived for some time incontinent and blind. She talks of her pain physically from the boils in bed, so much so she needed 8 pillows to support her in bed. And she wrote this amazing hymn. It's called He Giveth and Giveth and Giveth Again. He giveth more grace when the burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength when the labours increase. To added afflictions he addeth his mercy. To multiplied trials his multiplied peace. When we've exhausted our store of endurance, when our strength has failed ere the day is half done, when we've reached the end of our hoarded resources, our Father's full giving is only begun. His love has no limits. His grace has no measure. His power no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth and giveth and giveth again.